next reflection card has to do with the idea of deficit thinking. So, in short, if you happen to be away from the continent but you have some type of association to it, either through the fact that that's where you were born or maybe that's where your family was born, typically you get to a place where you want to make a contribution to your home country. If you live in the US, the UK, France, etc., sometimes it's very easy to fall into this idea of deficit thinking, where you imagine that you have solutions that you want to contribute to the continent. In the context of science engagement and science communication, this means that as someone who has a PhD or someone who has been educated in the sciences, there's this idea that you have something to contribute to the audience and that the information flow is going one way. However, many communication scholars suggest that that is very, very far from the reality of how people understand and how people learn. The reality is that people are not this empty bucket that needs to be filled. Instead, people come with their own biases and their own understanding and their own cultural context. And if you want to make a sustainable contribution, you have to understand what that cultural context is. And so, it's not just a matter of information flow where you show up and you say, people don't know, let me tell them, or people don't have, let me give them. Instead, you have to understand the cultural container, and in some instances, that cultural container can help you think about solutions and ways to deal with certain issues. Let me use an example. So in Central right now, one of the issues that are being dealt with is alcoholism. We've read many articles about alcoholism, and we've read of the fact that in response to alcoholism, leaders have decided to ban the presence of bars. And then furthermore, because now bars are being closed, there has now been the increase of illicit brews, which accumulate all manner of toxic compounds leading to death. And so this is a problem. This is an issue, and the government leaders have done their best to solve the issue, and then now we have another issue. So from the side of a scientist, I would think, and actually I did think, and I have this video draft, I thought, Foy, you need to make a video talking about the impact of alcohol on people's brains, on people's microbiomes, on people's livers, and you need to make sure that people understand the impacts of alcoholism and alcohol consumption, and you need to link all the information that you have. I even found this podcast by the neuroscientist Andrew Huberman about the impact of alcohol, and I had that linked and I was ready to go. And then I paused and I wondered, what are the odds that so many people are dealing with this issue simply due to lack of knowledge? Can I spend some time thinking about the cultural context in which this problem is occurring, and can that teach me something about the problem? So I found two things to help me understand and reframe my thinking. The first was this map that was made by this organization called Green String Network, and I have, in case I've messed up their name, their information should be here. And what's interesting about this map is it shows you the impact of intergenerational trauma, specifically in the Kenyan context. And as one of the symptoms that they hypothesize this trauma emerges is alcoholism. So it's not so simple. It's not just an issue of people understanding. There is a very historical context for why people are using alcohol to deal with problems. Another example has to do with this TikTok that I found by the content creator and historian Wairimo Mukoro. And so Wairimo Mukoro is a historian who makes TikTok videos, and she spends a lot of time reading and talking to elders and people that understand historical context of Gikuyu culture. And what she does is she makes these educational videos. And in one of the videos, she talked about alcoholism in Gikuyu culture. And she talked about how historically, the reason, or one of the ways that people understood the situation of alcoholism is that the individual did not have the right relationship with the uncle, specifically the uncle related to the mother. So basically your mother's brother, or someone in that area, or someone in that relational environment. So at first you might think, what does that have to do with alcoholism, which we know is a disease, we know it is a series of patterns, we know it is a series of neurochemical triggers that lead to these behaviors, and what does that have to do with anything? And furthermore, you are a scientist. Why are you thinking about these type of topics, and this doesn't help you understand the molecular biology of the problem? But if you pause and imagine, what could the culture, the people who practice this culture, what could they mean here? Consider that perhaps it's not about the uncle having some type of blessing or some type of curse, consider that maybe it's the fact that if you have an uncle that you are close to, that means that that is an extra level of support. What that means is that if you have an uncle with whom you have a productive, uplifting relationship, that is an extra spot or an extra point of mentorship, an extra point of encouragement. When you think about some of the problems that people deal with in their 20s and in their 30s, that is a very, very contentious time for many people. People are dealing with figuring out what they want in life, figuring out how they want to move forward, how they want to build their families, how to deal with concerns about what they're learning about the world and how to develop themselves and what their future looks like. That is a very contentious series of years. And so what if the presence of an uncle who can support you provides an extra amount of support as you navigate these issues? What if it's not about a curse from your uncle, but about the fact that someone who has walked before you can help you have some perspective on the issues that you're dealing with right now? This means issues of helplessness, issues of hopelessness, issues of not knowing what to do, issues of not knowing yourself, issues of not knowing what to do, how to do it, who to do it with, which family to build, with whom to build a family. These are all issues that people in their 20s and 30s deal with. And these are all issues that need support. They need encouragement. They need encouragement of a community. They need encouragement of a mentor. And so what if this tradition or this way of thinking is simply pointing out the importance of community in the development of young adults? So in that context, it's not just about information. It's not just about knowledge. It's not about shutting down bars. It's about thinking about who is this that is drinking? What issues are they dealing with? What support can we build up around them to help them not use alcohol as a coping mechanism? And so that made me rethink my video, and that is why that video is not up. I'm hoping that if I put it up eventually, I will be able to integrate maybe a conversation or two or some more information to talk about this. Or maybe I will just make sure to introduce or include as many resources as I can, not to just frame the issue as a biological problem, but a social problem.